man who had everything. The masterful It's a Wonderful Life. Major spoilers for It's a Wonderful Life, 1946. Henry Potter, Bert and Ernie. These some character names in the classic movie It's a Wonderful Life. Unfortunately, Henry Potter is not a wizard. He's a banker, and a greedy one at that. Potter is the richest man in the town, already owning most of its banks, bus lines, and department stores. He embodies the archetype of a ruthless slumlord, hoarding wealth while crushing the working class. Our protagonist, George Bailey, is the antithesis of Potter in every way, a likable family man who looks out for the community as he runs a rival mortgage and loan business, keeping prices low for everyone in town. The only one in town that dislikes Bailey is Potter. Bailey was going along fine, resisting Potter's attempts to creep into more ownership of the Bailey building loan. Suddenly, disaster struck. George sees his building and loan swarmed with panicked people, a stock market crash, on the night of his wedding, no less. George's nightmare unfolds, a bank run. Larger financial institutions demand their money, while panicked friends and community members flood his modest office. In the middle of the commotion, the phone rings. It's Potter. He heard Bailey was in trouble, and being the nice guy he is offering George an olive branch. He will give straight cash today for shares of the Bailey building loan. However, due to market conditions, at 50% of its value. George is appalled, but his desperate shareholders are intrigued. George pleads with them to hold on to their shares. Potter already owns the whole town. He would own everything now. George cries out, Potter isn't selling, he's buying. And why? Because we're panicking and he's not. He wants you living in his slums and paying rent he decides. After much back and forth, his newlywed Mary exclaims from across the loud room, The wedding money, $2,000, supposed to be a honeymoon around the world, is now saving Little Bedford Falls. George pays everyone enough to be pleased, and the Bailey building loan evades bankruptcy. Years pass, and Bailey and Potter are meeting. Potter compliments him. During the Depression, you and I were the only ones to keep our heads. You saved the building loan, and I saved the rest. Bailey remarks, Most say you stole it. A quote from the script. Potter. The envious ones say that, George, the suckers. Now I've stated my side very frankly. Let's look at your side. Young man, 27, 28, married, making, say, 40 a week. George. 45. Potter. 45, 45. Out of which, after supporting your mother and paying your bills, you're able to keep, say, 10 if you skimp. A child or two comes along, and you won't even be able to save the 10. Now, if this young man of 28 was a common, ordinary yokel, I say he was doing fine. But George Bailey is not a common, ordinary yokel. He's an intelligent, smart, ambitious young man who hates his job, who hates the building and loan almost as much as I do. A young man who's been dying to get out of here ever since he was born. A young man, the smartest one of the crowd, mind you. A young man who will sit by and watch his friends go places because he's trapped. Yes, sir, trapped into frighting his way, playing nursemaid to a lot of garlic eaters. Do I paint a correct picture, or do I exaggerate? George. Now, what's your point, Mr. Potter? Potter, my point is, I want to hire you. George, hire me? I want you to manage my affairs, run my properties, George. I'll start you out at $20,000 a year. George drops his cigar on his lap. He nervously brushes off sparks from his clothes. $20,000 a year? You wouldn't mind living in the nicest house in town, buying your wife a lot of fine clothes, a couple of business trips to New York a year, maybe once in a while Europe. You wouldn't mind that, would you, George? Would I? You're not talking to somebody else around here, are you? You know this is me. You remember me, George Bailey. Oh, yes, George Bailey, whose ship has just come in, providing he has a brain enough to climb aboard. Well, what about the building loan? Oh, confound it, man. Are you afraid of success? I'm offering you a 3-year contract at $20,000 a year starting today. George is tempted with 10 times his income. He goes to shake Potter's hand and, quote, As they shake hands, George feels a physical revulsion. Potter's hand feels like a cold mackerel to him. In that moment of physical contact, he knows he can never be associated with this man. George drops his hand with a shudder. He peers intently into Potter's face. George turns him down. A few years pass again. George, content with his life, has a few kids, gets a house on the block, but never goes on the honeymoon and sees the world like he'd hoped. All of a sudden, George's uncle, the executive banker, makes a grave mistake. He misplaces $8,000. The bank caller is here, and the building and loan is broke. Bailey goes to the only man he knows rich enough to help, Potter. Potter is shocked by George admitting the building and loan is insolvent and threatens to call the police for business malpractice and frauding investors. Bailey heads home. He can't think straight. He's yelling at his kids, rude to his wife, and overall miserable. After quite literally crashing out in his office, he storms out of the house. At rock bottom, he walks to the bridge to do the unthinkable. Eyeing the cold river bottom, with snow blocking his vision, quote, He stares down at the river, desperate, trying to make up his mind to act. He leans over, looking at the water, fascinated, glances furtively around him, hunches himself as though about to jump. From above, George, a body hurtles past and lands in the water with a loud splash. George looks down, horrified. Help! Help! George quickly takes off his coat and dives over the railing into the water. All this commotion alerts the bridge operator to retrieve the two men. While ashore, drying off, the man tells George he is his guardian angel, sent down to save him. Of course, George doesn't believe the seemingly crazy man. Still down on his luck, Bailey mutters, I wish I never existed. The angel sees this as his opportunity. You've got your wish, you've never been born. What did you say? You've never been born. You don't exist. You haven't a care in the world. No worries, no obligations, no $8,000 to get, no Potter looking for you at the sheriff. The snow stops. The world gets quiet. Bailey's clothes are bone dry. The world has changed. George runs to a small town, however, it's nothing he recognizes. Bright, colorful signs fill the streets with plenty of light. Bars and brothels are packed to the brim, with jazz tunes filling any space untaken. You would think it to be the middle of the day. Bedford Falls is no more. George looks up to his dismay, a sign bearing the town's name inscribed Pottersville. George realizes that by never existing, Potter bought up the whole town. All of George's friends and family are broke. His old boss is homeless, his mother lives in a brothel as an old maid, and his darling wife Mary doesn't even recognize him. At complete rock bottom, our nameless sap goes back to the same bridge he was at once before. He prays for his life back, and the guardian angel reverses the curse. A light snow starts to fall, and a gust of wind blows back Bailey's hair. He exists again. He runs at top speed back into town yelling, Mary! Mary! He sees the Pottersville sign as being placed by the original Hello Bedford Falls. He turns and runs through the falling snow up the main street of town. As he runs, he notices the town is back to its original appearance. He passes some late shoppers on the street. George then gets to his house, and waiting are a bank examiner, a reporter, and a sheriff. George is happy to see all of them, as he is happy for anybody to recognize him. He embraces his wife and kids with joy. There's commotion outside, and to George's surprise, the whole town is there. The rest of the crowd all greet George with greetings and smiles. Each one comes forward with money, in their pockets, in shoeboxes and coffee pots. Money pours onto the table, pennies, dimes, quarters, dollar bills, small money, but lots of it. Miss Bailey and Miss Hotch push towards George. More people come in. The place becomes a bedlam. Shouts of gangway, gangway as a new bunch comes in and pours out its money. Mary stands next to George, watching him. George stands there, overcome and speechless as he holds Zuzu. As he sees the familiar faces, he gives them sick grins. Tears course down his face. His lips ran their names as he greets them. Mary did it, George. Mary did it. She told a few thousand people you're in trouble and they scattered all over town collecting money. They didn't ask any questions. Just said, if George is in trouble, count me in. You never seen anything like it. The community easily covers the $8,000 and some. The bank examiner, reporter, and sheriff go home empty. George thought he had nothing, but he had everything he needed with his friends and community. By helping the community hold through the Depression and giving everyone a fair deal, he was held with utmost regard. His uncle exclaims, It's a wonderful life. I did 10% justice to the masterful actors James Stewart, Donna Reed, and director Frank Capra. And a top 5 movie of mine all time, I still suggest giving it a watch.